While Dr. Dawkins and Dr. Lovelock were making those discoveries, some other scientists started working on the connection between biology and psychology. Lots of people have worked on this from different directions and called it different things. The name it usually goes by now is evolutionary psychology. It was first pioneered by E.O. Wilson, who called it sociobiology. Book number 4 is called How the Mind Works by Steven Pinker, which is a good introduction to it. Dr. Pinker is basically the spokesman for evolutionary psychology now. Evolutionary psychology is basically the selfish gene theory applied to human behavior. The simplest way to explain it is that your instincts for survival and reproduction make up the deepest level of your subconsciousness. At this point, we're talking about psychology in terms of chemistry. Your genes created your brain, and your brain creates your ideas. Every decision you make in life could affect your survival and reproduction. If you don't survive and reproduce, your bloodline will die out. So how to keep your bloodline alive is what your brain keeps track of. Maybe once upon a time there were some people whose brains didn't keep track of keeping their bloodlines alive, but we aren't descended from those people because their bloodlines died out. Evolutionary psychology gets really complicated really fast, which is why How the Mind Works is the longest of the 5 books by far. The easiest way to think of it is, every decision you have ever made in your life seemed like the best idea to you for some reason or another at the time you made it, and the same is true for everyone else in the world. Every decision you have ever made seemed to you to be the choice that would give you the best life out of all the choices you could think of. Well, the best life always means subconsciously it seems to you to maximize the survival rate of your genes, meaning the best way to keep your bloodline going. Various scientists have been applying that to a lot of different things, like differences between religions and the development of cultures and world history and child development and differences between men and women. So that right there is a good thing to know about for solving problems between you and someone else. Everyone on Earth, even your worst enemy, thinks that every decision they make is the best decision they could make at the time. So that's a universal point of reference for talking through your problems with anyone you'll ever meet. For instance, why do men and women think so differently? This causes a lot of problems in people's relationships. Well, both men and women want to have children that will grow up to be adults. There's 2 basic ways you can do that: quantity or quality. You could have a lot of children and hope that some of them will survive, or you could have a few children and take good care of them. Well, men do one and women do the other. A woman can only get pregnant once a year, but a man can get a lot of women pregnant in 1 year. So what happens? Women are really picky about which men they go out with. And men compete against each other a lot to try to get women to go out with them. Well, that arrangement works pretty well in some ways. If you're a woman, which kind of man would you rather have children with? The kind that wins competitions, or the kind that loses competitions? And if you're a man and you can figure out how to win competitions, a lot of women will want to have children with you. Well, once upon a time, and this is still true in some parts of the world, there wasn't any birth control. So being romantically attracted to a person meant wanting to try to have children with them. For men, that meant wanting to try to get a woman pregnant, and for women, that meant wanting to try getting pregnant by a man. Now that we do have birth control, that changes how people act upon their feelings, but the basic feelings are still the same. The people you're romantically attracted to are the ones you think would be best to try having children with. Well, men and women have different ways of having children, so they have different ways of picking out the best people to try having children with. So that makes relationships really complicated. A marriage is an agreement between a man and a woman, and it's a law and a custom that's enforced by the people around them about which woman a man is supposed to have sex with and which man a woman is supposed to have sex with. But those agreements and laws and customs still aren't enough a lot of the time. And what happens then? A man can have children with more than one woman at a time, so some married men, and some men who have girlfriends, have affairs with other women. A woman can only get pregnant once a year, but that doesn't necessarily mean she wants to get pregnant by her husband. Since there are so many men who are willing to cheat on their wives and girlfriends, one way for a woman to have a child with the best man she can find is to get pregnant by a married man she likes better than her husband, let her husband believe the child is his, and then get her husband to help her raise the child. So she got pregnant by the best man she could find, and she got the best man she could find to help her raise the child, but those ended up being two different men. That's a good deal for her, and for the man she got pregnant by, but it's not a good deal for the man who ended up raising another man's child. So men are possessive of women in ways women aren't possessive of men, because it's a lot easier for a woman to keep track of which children are hers than it is for a man. Now, how many ways have men found to compete against each other? Any way that men find to compete against each other is a way they could use to try to attract women. What's a soccer game but a form of competition? What's a chess game but a form of competition? What's getting the best job you can but a form of competition? What's getting the best house, the best car, and the best clothes you can so you can show off to everyone but a form of competition? What's serving in the military and maybe fighting in a war, but a form of competition? What's a bunch of gang members driving around shooting each other, but a form of competition? What's one man taking another man's farm, but a form of competition? Women, meanwhile, have to be more emotionally sensitive than men are. For the first 2 years of a child's life, the child has emotions, but can't talk. So a woman has to be able to tell what her child needs by interpreting her child's emotions. Then she's more emotionally sensitive to her husband and her friends and her relatives and everyone. So when men do what they're good at, they end up competing a lot. When women do what they're good at, they end up cooperating with other people a lot better. A solution to global warming, and a solution to any kind of social problem, depends on people cooperating with each other. So this means peace through education especially depends on education for women.